Welcome back, everybody. All right, so hopefully you and your family are doing well today. I hope that you're working through this. I had originally scheduled this video to be set up so it would automatically come on, but I had some technical difficulties with that, so I've manually started this video. Today I want to talk a little bit about fake news, and I think that it's timely to talk about this because the whole COVID-19 has really highlighted the fake news and really shown us how big of an industry that is. It's really interesting because I think most of us didn't think about it too much unless it directly impacted us at the time. But now with the coronavirus, we're seeing that it's actually much more prevalent than we ever imagined, right? So our version of the truth, when we look at, say, TV or media or social media, or even these announcements that are being made by public global authorities now, we're viewing that. And before, I think we used to think of that as the truth. We didn't question it, right? But now I believe that what we would call before the truth, right? And I should say that in air quotes, the truth is now elusive. And the default state now is really lies, fake news, half-truths. To me, that's the new norm. The idea of truth, I think, is a generation lost. And so this can be a little bit dangerous if we make the assumption that what we're viewing or hearing or watching is the truth, because that will dictate some behaviors, and those behaviors could be really bad, right? And we're seeing it this week. As I said, we're with the coronavirus, it's really highlighting some of these deficiencies. So we're getting information go out there from public officials, and as a result, people are drinking bleach. I never thought I would see that in my lifetime. I never even thought I never considered that for a second. Considering it says don't drink this on the label of the bleach container. And, maybe that's not the best example, and I don't want to pick on any particular person or be critical of any particular group or organization. Well, yeah, I will a little bit, so I take that back. I will pick on people and organizations because some are far worse than others. But, that's just one example of many. I think as we look at this whole virus adventure that we're on, if we look at pretty big fundamental errors in messaging, what I would call fake news, for different reasons, and we're going to get into that a little bit. But one of the first ones was, this does not pass from person to person. You don't have to be worried. It's only from animals to people. It's an isolated case. Don't worry. No, that's fake news. That's totally wrong, right? But that was the message from the World Health Organization at the very beginning, right? And that was totally wrong, totally wrong. The other big one was don't wear masks. You shouldn't wear a mask. They actually frowned upon you wearing a mask. Totally wrong. Fake news all over that for various reasons. And I think in a couple of my previous videos, I've talked about that. So terrible. And that's resulted in countless deaths, countless suffering, global recession, pandemic, right? Like all these things that we think that, well, these simple little lies, these simple, blurring of truth, or maybe a lie for a really good reason, right? And I think in that case it was, well, we want healthcare workers to have the masks because we didn't plan for this. We had really poor planning. Therefore, we don't have enough PPE for healthcare professionals, and they need that equipment. So therefore, we're going to lie to the general public. That's not good, right? I mean, we could get into the philosophy of that, right? The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, or the many other things that you could go through. But I'm not going to, because that's hours of discussion that we could talk about. But I just think that we can agree there's some issues there. The other big lie was, or fake news was, okay, it's safe to travel. Don't worry, it's the wrong thing to close borders. You should go travel. No, right? The sooner we lock things down, the better chance we would have had to prevent a pandemic, right? And so we got, advisement not to do that. Some people did it, which was good. I think that was one of the good things that actually occurred sooner than later in some cases, but not soon enough, of course, as we can see now. Really hard to do that, of course, and I'm not saying that it would have been super effective, but saying it's the wrong thing to do, it just is crazy, right? I think the other one that we're seeing more so now is it will be gone soon. Excuse me. I think that we saw that earlier on. It was like, well, this is just like the flu. That was another big one. That's just like the flu. It'll be gone soon. But we're still kind of singing that song, right? Oh, don't worry. We're going to get back to normal soon. The economy is going to be better than it ever was. And I hate to tell people this, but that lifestyle that you were used to, that you can remember a couple months ago when you were outside and you were going to those exotic places, that's gone. That life is over, right? We're not going to go back to normal. We're not going to be exactly the same way we were before. This is for many different reasons, right? And this will trigger a set of events that will put us on a much different path. I don't know exactly what that's going to look like. I've got a bunch of ideas. I'm going to talk about that in a future video. But we've changed, and we can't go back to what was. So I think that this will not be over soon. It's never going to be over. This is not the last pandemic that we will see. Hopefully in our lifetime it will be, but I doubt that, right? If we look at the rate of change that we see right now, I was joking on Twitter the other day. I said, for 2020, I expect alien invasions at this rate, right? And I expect AI to take over the world at this rate. And look at all the things we've done in 2020. And they haven't been all great, but it's just crazy, right? So this will not be over soon. And we got a lot of stuff to do still. We've got a food shortage to get through. We got, the economy to recover. We've got all these things. And those are like just big problems that we have to solve. And I'm sure we will solve them. That's not the point. The point is that the bar's changed. The way we operate is changing. We're all working from home. We're not all going to, on Monday morning, rush back to the office. That's not happening, right? Those properties that you're renting that are really expensive, they're going to go away, right? You're going to get rid of a bunch of those. That's just fact of the matter. I mean, not everybody, not everywhere, but guaranteed a whole bunch of ones out there are going to be like, yeah, that's expensive. You're all working from home already. Keep doing that because it's working. So anyway, so those are some of the big things that I saw. And I get a lot of people say, well, Rob, it's a conspiracy. It's the aliens that built the pyramids that are doing all this. And, as much as those conspiracy theories are really interesting, and I do enjoy kind of watching some of those videos or listening on the podcast to some of those theories. And, I would really like to see Bigfoot one day just walk out of the woods and go, here I am. Like, would you guys stop looking for me? Yeah, that would be amazing, right? But conspiracies take two things. They require intelligence and secrecy, neither of which we are good at or have a lot of, right? So when you look at an individual, can they keep a secret? Sure. Are they pretty smart? Yeah, lots of super smart people out there. But when you take a group of people, they usually fail miserably in both of those departments. So you want to keep a secret? Keep it with one person. Because as soon as you tell another person, your chances of that secret being kept go out the window. So it's more likely that we're seeing these, the fake news and the lies and stuff for two other reasons. And it's not intelligence and it's not this secrecy. It's really stupidity and just individuals wanting to make money, right? And Edward Snowden was once interviewed and they asked him about the conspiracy theories and stuff. And he's like, nah, it's just a bunch of people that want to make a bunch of money and they're all moving in the same direction. I thought that was, just so elegantly put. And I'm that's not a quote. I'm just trying to remember exactly what he said. It was to that effect, right? And it's, the simplest answer is usually the right answer. And I firmly believe that that's really what we see here a lot. So An example of that would be on the late night infomercials. We see some of these where they say, "Oh, silver is going to cure the coronavirus." That's a pure play on people's stupidity in order to make money. And I forget that guy's name, but he's now getting sued. Because how ridiculous is that? And I see there's a lot of that. There's a lot of, "Oh, this will cure the coronavirus," right? I did some videos on supplements, and I still do believe in supplements, and I believe in healthy living. I think a good diet is the most important thing, and exercise, of course. And those things are relatively easy to do. But supplements sometimes I will take just because I think they're good. But some of these supplements that I've started taking because people told me that they were a good idea, like cortisone. There's a Canadian scientist that said he's doing studies and it's probably the next best thing. And I started reviewing that. I couldn't find any details that really validated that claim, that made me feel good about the money I was spending on that. So there's a lot of that out there. And some of it's more subtle than others. This was in the news. It was mainstream news, which I should have known better about. And he was saying it was how great it was. And it was really high level. So that's another big red flag, right? There's no link to the study, which would have been nice. I went and looked it all up, and it wasn't very good, I didn't think, as far as showing me how effective it was. It was all very small studies, very kind of, loose. So this global pandemic is making fake news much more obvious, right? We see the world authorities coming to the table, telling us the way things are, how we should behave, what we should do. And they're quite often wrong, just flat out wrong, dangerously wrong, right? And I say dangerously wrong because I think most of the world now is aware that they were wrong because we can prove it, right? We have their tweets. And we could say, okay, well, 60 days ago you said this, and now you're saying that. And those things are totally opposite. And if you had said this back at this date, so many people wouldn't have died, so many people wouldn't have suffered, so many people wouldn't have lost their jobs, and we wouldn't have lost, billions or trillions of dollars, right? And had all this stuff. So that's bad. And I say dangerous because, we're talking about two big things, right? We're talking about your safety and your economic welfare. And, you don't want to die or get sick, and you don't want to be poor and jobless. And I think that that's the risk to listening to some of these central authorities, right? World, global central authorities that are just getting it totally wrong. So that's why I'm making this video, is because it's really highlighted that. And I think that this is a perfect opportunity, as we admitted that we're not going to go back to normal. This won't be over soon. And we're going to change our behaviors many different ways. And we're going to change as a society. We're going to change as individuals. And we're going to adapt and become hopefully better. And I think one of those things is going to be with fake news, where we identify, okay, well, what is fake news? Where is it coming from? Why is it here? What am I going to do as an individual to make myself better off? Because we need to have news. We need to have what I call sources of intelligence that can allow us to change our life behaviors, our patterns of life, right? I need to know what's going to be healthy for me. I need to know what's going to move me in the right direction. I need to know what threats to avoid. That's the whole point of intelligence, right? We want actionable intelligence that can allow us to have better lives, that can allow us to protect our families. The news does not do that at this point. And I think it's a really big mistake for people to think that it does. And I think many of you believe when you watch the news that it does. And yeah, so let's talk about that a little bit. Let's talk about the history of the news. I remember when I was a kid and we had a TV, and my folks would watch this news station at night, and it would come on late at night. I was trying to go to sleep at that time. And I remember the jingle of the opening, like da 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 da, like really like, bah, 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 let's start the news, exciting thing, right? And they would always start off, and you get that punchy reporter that would go like, yeah, today, blah 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 blah, and that was all really exciting. And even then, I think they were cluing into, okay, we need high impact, we need attention grabbing stuff that's 15 seconds long, right? We need to do it like that to keep you on the channel. Well, that was the news back then, and it did deliver what I would call some news. Even then, it was starting to get polluted with what I'm going to get into, but it was more pure as far as factual. It was more in the direction of reality. But now, of course, it's not. So the news industry really kind of was newspaper, print media, right, where it started off. And that was really a snapshot in time that people could read and digest, and it would come out maybe weekly, and then it was daily, and that was really pushing the limits, I think, of news production in print. And then, of course, we had radio and TV, and now we're getting into more like real-time news, and that's when it started to become a little more competitive as well, right? Where, okay, now there's more options for people. Then we moved into the internet, where now it's like, you know, all bets are off because there's so many different sources that are trying to grab people's attention. And at that point, I think we made this revolutionary discovery that we like to be entertained more than we want to go through factual data that can make our lives better. So, you know, we really will go to, if we're given two choices, one is to be entertained and one is to be given some factual data that could improve our lives. Most of us pick the entertainment option, right? And we want a very small clip, and we want it to be hyperactive with bright lights and changing levels of audio quality and things like that, right? And it's like if you watch a kids show, that's kind of like what it's like. It's this kaleidoscopic experience that keeps you captivated. And so that's kind of where news went. It realized, well, we need the clicks, and we're not getting the clicks by providing just factual information that's kind of can be, you know, boring because it's often long. You have to go through the details, and it's not necessarily going to, it's hard to make it fun. It's hard to make it entertaining. People have, for sure. But even that's getting polluted. So there's documentaries that are out there that are good, that are sort of factual sometimes, but they're always done now with an agenda in mind. So those are kind of fake news now, which is disappointing. But so we went from reporting reality into, you know, this other thing, right? We went into the 7 seconds of attention span grabbing kaleidoscopic entertainment. So that's kind of how it's evolved, I see, right? And as it gets more and more that way, I think it's getting even more and more clickbaity, right? So you've got the headline, you've got the thumbnail. It's like begging you to click on it, and you know, the fear of missing out if you don't. We've got all these concepts now about it. So I think that's the first thing is for us to understand the history of news, and that news is no longer news anymore. Like it's something else. We still call it news, but make no mistake about it. What you're getting is not news. It's entertainment, right? You're being entertained. So there's that. But we can detect it easier now too, right? So one of the things that we see during this whole virus pandemic is we're able to go, well, wait a minute. You know, 2 or 3 months ago, you were telling me this, and now you're telling me that, right? Like I got you on this lie. We can see it. So we saw the people, the government in San Francisco saying, oh yeah, come on down to, it's, no problem. And now they're saying, oh no, we didn't say that. Well, yes, you did. Yes, you did. Right. So people can't say, oh, I didn't say that anymore. Before you could, because we didn't have a record, and it would just be our word against theirs. And well, I'm pretty sure you did say that. And I said, no, I've always said this could infect people. I always said it could go from person to person. Oh no, I've always said masks are a good idea. No, you didn't, right? So now we can see that, we can call them on it. Of course, now when we call people on it, they don't respond to that. They just avoid that line of questioning. And so that's interesting. But now at least, if you go and look, you can see the discrepancies, which is good. And I think now also, big business has always known that they want to be able to provide you with information that will sway your opinion of something, right? If we go back and look at, say, the tobacco industry, And there's many other industries like that. And I won't get into all of them because they can be quite sensitive and volatile in discussion. But I think it's safe to say big companies have known for a long time that, and they call it marketing, right? They want to change your opinion of something. So if it's, say, they want you to eat a chocolate bar, they're not going to tell you that sugar is actually really bad for you and will lead to obesity and other major health problems. They're going to tell you about the benefits of it. So this kind of social engineering has been going on for quite a while. And so with the news, it's kind of similar, right? We want to change, and especially when you look at it online, we want to change your opinion of different things. Not only give you information, but really make you believe that information. So we see this with social engineering in companies, and even governments now. We look at things like online sock puppets, which are fake accounts, which are used en masse to really help change your opinion of something. The 50-cent army in China was one of the more famous ones to do that. That was years ago now. Now, every government, every company has a group of people that's really coordinated to help do that. Any government out there now that doesn't have a group of people that do that, I would be really surprised if one exists. In China, they actually have a military arm that does that. I don't know if it's still called the 50-cent army. If you're aware of what these groups are called, please put it in the comments down below. I'd really be curious to find that out. So now the fake news, right? We kind of used it as a weapon in some ways, right? And we're able to change public opinion. And so not only just change public opinion of stuff like that. And I think when we saw for the virus pandemic, it was don't wear masks. And we were trying to really shame people that were saying, no, scientifically proven you should wear masks. So it's like, well, this central authority says you shouldn't, and you'd get 50 people on Twitter or Facebook saying, oh, no, you should not wear a mask because so-and-so said so, and really trying to make you feel bad about knowing science. So there was that. And the other side where I see it being used as a weapon a little bit is where if you have a scientific fact that disagrees with what they're promoting, they will call your stuff fake news, even though you can source it, right? Which is, I think, an excellent idea in a lot of this stuff, to an actual scientific study that has some credibility. Now, I know there's still even problems with that, right? But at least it gives it some starting point for credibility. And so I think that's something to look at. So it's really evolved, right? When we look at the very beginnings of news, and within my lifetime, I've seen most of that, and how it's evolved into something completely different. So the evolution of what we historically call news into this entertainment kind of weird thing. Why is that, right? Why do we have that? And I often refer to it as our preferred diet, which sounds a little bit weird. But if you've given the option of a pop drink or prune juice, the prune juice is going to be great, right? Doesn't taste that good, but from a health perspective, it's got a lot of fiber in it, a lot of nutrition in it. It's going to be really good for you. And you've got the pop drink right next to it, which is really bad for you, leads to obesity and other health issues, lots of sugar, no real health benefits at all, but it tastes amazing. Most people are going to reach for the pop drink, unfortunately, right? And they're not even going to like the taste of the prune juice. They're definitely not going to be too excited about that. It's not going to sustain you, right? But the pop drink's very popular, right? And if you look at what sells, there's not a lot of prune juice being sold in the markets, right? There's tons and tons of pop drinks being sold. People love it because it tastes great. Well, same with the news, right? You're not that interested. I mean, I say you, and I don't mean you as an individual. I mean the masses are not really interested in hearing a lot about, the details, the facts, right? They're going to flip the channel and go to entertainment, and so that's why it's changed that way. The other thing I see is this devotion to a cause quite often, and we see that in the political world quite a bit, where people will be very devoted to, one way or another, one party or the other, one color or the other, right? Red, blue, or whatever it is, one team or the other. We see this with sports as well. And it's funny because it's kind of like that trick that parents do with their kids. They don't say, would you like to brush your teeth? It would be more like, do you want to brush your teeth now or in a half an hour? It's not like that. You don't get the choice of brushing or not. That's going to happen. So it's kind of like that, and people get fixated on, oh, I gotta do this or that. It's not a matter of, well, wait a minute, why am I even picking either one? And I think that the fake news kind of caters to that as well. So that's kind of a tangent there, but I wanted to touch on that because often it's used in that area to reinforce the fact that you must pick this or that. You cannot step back and look at the total landscape. And I see that quite a bit. So given all that, I mean, that's a whole bunch of stuff that I've just given you there. And I'm sure you've got lots of comments on that. I'd love to hear about them in the comments down below. But so how do we respond to this? How do you live your life if you know that the news streams are now polluted and are really just entertainment? But it's a dangerous form of entertainment because you can make life choices based off of that with the sometimes assumption that it's real. So I think step one, we must understand that news is no longer news. It's really just entertainment. And it's kind of like a reality TV show, right? Where it looks kind of real. It resembles reality, but it's actually not, right? So there's that. I often think of the WWE, the World Wrestling, what is it? I don't know what the E stands for, but it's where they wrestle on TV, and it looks real. Like they do a lot of prep work for that. It looks really like it would hurt, and sometimes it does. Sometimes they get injured with it, but it's all planned out and choreographed and set up, right? So they know what's going to happen before it happens. So it's fake, right? It's not real fighting, of course, because real fighting doesn't look like that. But it's entertaining to watch, and people watch it. And a lot of the wrestling enthusiasts say, "No, it's real," and even they kind of know it's fake, but they want to live that dream of that it's real. And you've got the people dressed up in funny costumes, and they all have a certain persona, and it's like over the top, crazy, right? But it's super entertaining. Like I will sometimes watch it just to be entertained. There's no concept of realism there at all, of course. But oh my God, you want to talk about entertainment? So step one, understand that it's not real. It's not real at all. And step two would be don't make big life choices based on this information, right? Because that's going to get you in trouble. And we need to actually think about what reality really is. And then that leads us into step three, which would be to seek alternate forms of intelligence. And intelligence, I'm not talking about smart people. What I'm talking about is data that you can collect, that you can then use to act on, right? So maybe you're going to listen to 10 different podcasts or 5 different videos or something like that can give you information about a topic. Maybe you're going to read 5 other studies that from scientists, right? Something like that. That's more tangible, not tangible, but more credible, that can allow you to make an intelligent decision. We're smart people, right? We can make decisions for ourselves based on collecting this information that makes sense. And with the masks, right? That was I keep going back to that because it's such a huge mistake. If you stick something in your mouth so you can't breathe in, you're not going to have those particles go into your mouth, in your airway, right? Logically, that makes some sense. Having someone tell you that it's not effective at all and it's super dangerous makes no sense. So just using common sense yourself, thinking about it, looking at studies, looking at a variety of information, and then making your own choice, I think is a good way to go. And then step 4, and it's kind of related, right? Trust but verify. I love that expression, right? Because especially now with all the news, all the channels coming at us, all the different ways to get information, I don't trust any of them. I don't trust anyone. I like to verify everything. And sometimes it's very difficult to do that because if you've got multiple sources of information, it's hard sometimes to verify it. But I think if it's an important life choice that you're making, it's a good idea to do that as best you can. And I think step 5 sounds ridiculous, but it's think. And I'm not trying to be rude here or insult anybody at all. And I think that it's just really, a lot of us are not used to being analytical or to really investigate into some of these things. I took philosophy in university. And when I went in for the very first class, the teacher really interesting guy, sat us down and said, I'm going to teach you how to think because you typically don't think very much. I was so offended. I was like, dude, I think every day. And I really didn't understand what he meant until the semester was almost over, and he had us going through endless exercises to really pick apart these different concepts and really think about beliefs that we had formed. And I thought that was really interesting, and it made me become much more critical of a lot of things that we think about. And I think that you don't have to take a course in philosophy. I think what you have to do is just ask a lot of questions, right, to verify what you're understanding, what you're hearing. So that's step 5. So some questions that I have right now that that I think you might be able to help me with as we work through this, and we try to understand what's fake news and what's reality, right? So if the global authorities, such as the WHO, continue to trick people, how do we manage that risk, right? So right now we're working through this pandemic, and the World Health Organization still seems to be the people everybody's watching and listening to. If they have a terrible track record, and I don't believe anything they say, especially Tedros, but maybe some of the other people that are speaking are good, and I'm sure there's other people in that organization that are great. But how do we move forward with that? Who do I listen to there? Right? Do I just write them off? What are your thoughts on that? Because I don't have a good answer there, other than just really try to get other information to back up what they're saying. And then there's the people that are really believe what's being said, even though it's wrong. Do we argue with them? I've been going back and forth on that, and it's really hard for me sometimes not to argue with them. I often want to try to teach them or correct them, and I find more and more that's just a waste of time. It's a waste of energy. But how do we fix that problem, right? Do we want to fix that problem? And then as I look ahead, I'm worried about the food shortage that we're inevitably going to have to some degree. And who's going to tell us about that, if anybody, before it's too late, right? What do we look to find information about that? I'm not sure. The other one, big one that nobody's talking about is, am I immune after I get infected? And I think that there's a lot of news out there now that well, not a lot, there's a little bit out there right now starting to come out where it says that you're not immune. But then some countries, I think it's Spain, is giving people a certificate of immunity once they get infected. That could go terribly wrong, I think. But so I want to get information on that, which I don't have right now. The other big one that's in my mind right now is, will there be a run on the banks? That's something nobody's talking about right now, but everything else is happening. Why would that not happen? Why would people not be pulling their money out at this point? And if that happens, that's a world of hurt right there. So another big question is, what happens when the unemployment insurance runs out for people? You're going to have millions of people on unemployment insurance with no job, and if they don't go back to work at some point, that's going to be a bunch of people in a really bad situation, which is going to put huge pressure on a bunch of other things. Like, where do they go? Are they going to be homeless, right? What happens then? So yeah, that's down the road, but it's coming up. What happens when our government prints a bunch of money? What does that do to inflation? Nobody's talking about that yet, right? The inflationary risks and what that's going to do to the economy, to everybody else in this particular country. And this is another one that I think about a lot. So we have a lot of concerns about China not being transparent. We have a lot of concerns about China really kind of owning the World Health Organization. The U.S. is backed out of it now. They've cut funding. So there's a concern that China is influencing some of these organizations. And I think that's a valid concern based on what we've seen come out of that country as far as transparency and things like that, right? But, however, and we Trump did some things there where he cut funding to that organization, stuff like that. That's fine. But Trump owes the Bank of China billions of dollars, right? So I know he's criticizing, what's his name now, Biden, for owing the Chinese government or bank a bunch of money, but he owes the money too. So in the Western hemisphere, we have these government leaders that are kind of in debt to the Chinese bank, And that may, I would think, influence some of their decisions. So, that's a concern to me as we make some changes moving forward to the new normal, right? Because we want to do some things to safeguard this situation from happening again. One of those would be probably manufacturing some essential services like medicines in our own country. So we'd actually at least have some sort of stockpile or availability. So yeah, that's a concern to me. So if you've got answers or thoughts on any of those questions, I'd love to hear from you in the comments down below. Let me know what you think. How do we get answers to that? How do we navigate that area there, right? And hopefully what I've talked about today has been helpful to you to navigate the whole fake news area and show you how it's evolved. If you've enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. If you want to be alerted to future videos, please subscribe and hit the little bell button. If you like this video, it will actually let me know what kind of content you like, and it will help me create future content that you'll enjoy as well. So that's it for today. Stay safe, and I'll see you soon.